What's up everyone, Sio here with week 7 of the NES. This week we are taking on Beard, coach of the New York Aqua Jets. We've played him basically every season since like season 1, I think at this point, so like there's plenty of history on the channel. Beard and I are good friends and go back and forth all the time, so I expect this game to be really close, and his team is awful for me to play this year. It's very, very fast and very offensive, which my team doesn't 100% do the best against, since it is kind of on the slower end. And he has a Genesect because we decided to unban that this year. I don't know why the league decided to unban it and only ban it to okay, so it's unbanned, but you have to limit it to shift drives only. So the good news is that it can't like hold a choice scarf or anything like that. The bad news is it has every move in its move pool available, and Genesect's move pool is fucking dumb. And he has good support around it, so I definitely have to be pretty careful. I've also used Mudsdale and Mega Beedrill and Hitmonlee before, and all of them are pretty good. And Weezing too, actually, I've used Weezing before too. So it's another team I'm pretty familiar with. I'm pretty familiar with Beard's playstyle, so either way, it's just going to be a pretty good game. Sorry, I'm also kind of sick this week, so if I have to kind of stop in the middle, that's kind of why. But first up, we have a choice Scarf Zygarde. Scarf Zygarde basically outruns everything on his team that I need to. The only thing it doesn't outrun offhand is Scarfed Arrow, I guess. Or Hitmonlee after it gets unburdened. So basically everything else manages to go pretty well. Because Mudsdale is very offensive and gets his stamina boost up, I decided to go mix this week and actually run Grass Knot and HP Fire. He has a couple of bugs that I'd like to hit with HP Fire too if worse comes to worse. Like, Zygarde's special attack isn't great, but it is workable, especially if he invests in like full physical defense and not special defense. Next up is kind of a counter lead Nihilego, because I know he likes to lead Araquanid and get webs up as fast as possible. I have a Focus Sash Nihilego this week with Power Gem, Grass Knot, HP Fire, and Magic Coat. Magic Coat is a cool move that basically bounces back anything that's would be bounced back by Magic Bounce, I guess is the easiest way to think about it. So like any hazards, any status condition, I think even like Roar and stuff like that. Basically, I have Magic Bounce for the turn and then kind of goes back and bounces stuff back. So the plan is basically to Magic Coat webs up if he leads Araquanid. I have a Sash, so I'll be able to live, and then I'll just be able to do Power Gem damage. Again, Grass Knot and HP Fire are a little bit redundant because I also have that on Zygarde, but obviously it's going to hit a little bit harder with Nihilego. And I'm a plus speed Nihilego this week, so if I do manage to get a kill and get up to plus speed, I'll be able to outspeed Beedrill and stuff, as well as outspeeding Genesect. Next up is Golbat, who's officially come more times already than I expected to this season, with Taunt, Toxic Roost, and Super Fang. He has a lot of walls that are pretty annoying. Specifically, the Mudsdale could kind of prove to be kind of annoying for especially Nihilego, but also Zygarde. So I basically want to be able to Toxic this thing, taunt it so it can't rest talk, and then Super Fang it so it can chip it down with reliable damage without having to worry about stamina boosts and stuff. This also takes hits from pretty much everything on his team pretty well. So I'm looking forward to Golbat this week. Next up is Ferrothorn with Stealth Rock, Thunder Wave, Gyro Ball, and Leech Seed. A little bit more of a support Ferrothorn this week, I guess, just because he doesn't actually have a Fire type on his team. So any of the coverage that comes from like his team this week is gonna have to be like Flamethrower, Weezing, or something like that, which is like okay, but normally not strong enough to really be able to OHKO, especially if I'm full Spadef. I have to be a little bit more careful around like Genesect and stuff, because Genesect's coverage and offenses are strong enough to be able to break through. But basically everything else I can kind of wall. Just set up Leech Seed, kind of Thunder Wave stuff. If he does bring Comfey and tries to start setting up on me, since Comfey is pretty fast and I'm pretty slow, I can kind of just spam Gyro Ball. Even if it's like max biz def, it's still going to be doing more than it wants to take, and then I can kind of Thunder Wave it, Leech Seed, stall it, and then it won't want to stand against that. Then next up is Red Card Mimikyu. I've brought a Mimikyu pretty similar to this before, but this week it's specifically for Unburdened Hitmonlee, pretty much. I don't really have a ton for it on this team, as you can probably imagine, and if it does kind of get in at the right time and set up its Unburdened, I can just lose. So Red Card basically gives me a guaranteed swap out whenever it sets up, just get it out of there and start over. If I can get this in and at an ideal time, I don't know why that was so hard to say, I can set up an SD and actually do some pretty good damage with all of my stuff. I thought about running Shadow Sneak, just to be able to hit Beedrill and Aerodactyl a little bit better, but I kind of realized that Woodhammer and Play Rough and Shadow Call were probably better coverage overall. And SD allows me to basically set up, if he does try to bring in Mandibuzz or something against me on a switch, I can SD on the switch and then do a ton of damage with a Play Rough, and then even if it foul plays, it's whatever because it's neutral. And then finally, we have AV Analytics Starmie with Dazzling Gleam, HP Fire, Psychic, and Scald. A pretty speedy, bulky Starmie this week, actually, because I didn't really need this to do more than just kind of like generally wear stuff down over the course of the game. I also wanted it to be kind of on the bulkier end because his team is kind of slower, with the exception of a couple of really fast things that I can't outrun anyway. So I was able to kind of invest a lot in HP this week and then just split the rest in speed and special attack. Basically, this is kind of just meant to kind of come in, do a little bit of damage to stuff, kind of weaken stuff. If it's already weakened, kind of pick stuff off, and then just kind of generally be bulky enough to take a hit or two. Mostly for a Genesect Bug Buzz. I still don't take it well, obviously, especially if he gets the download boost for the special attack. But I think I stand a chance at living if I'm at full with an Assault Vest. It's not great, but I might be able to. So I kind of already spoiled it slightly, but I'll just tab over to the battle really quick and be right back. Alright, so good news about this team is I was actually 6 for 6 on what I expected Beard to bring. I kind of talked about everything pretty generally, but more or less this is kind of the core that he's been building most of his teams around. For good reason, because obviously this team is really, really scary, but it gave me a little bit of confidence in my prep at least. Like I said, I have to be very careful about Hitmonlee because Unburdened Hitmonlee is pretty terrifying. Beedrill is a very, very annoying pivot for my team, and Mandibuzz is a very good wall, so I have to kind of either chunk it down pretty quickly or just try to wear it down with rocks over the course of the game or something. So I expect him to lead Araquanid because, quite frankly, that's what he's done like every other week. Webs are very good for his team and allowed him to pivot around with like insane speed that nobody can really touch. So I'm gonna go ahead and lead my counter lead, I guess, in Nihilego. He actually leads Hitmonlee right away, which is kind of terrifying. After the game, he told me it was a counter lead to my counter lead, basically. So should already show you how familiar with each other Beard and I are, I guess. I feel like I worded that weird, but basically he expected me to lead something to counter his Araquanid, so he led something to counter my counter. And I don't really want to take a bullet punch from this because I don't really have anything for it, and Hitmonlee actually has like surprisingly good Spit F. So turn 1 I'm already kind of screwed basically, because like I don't want to go hard Ferrothorn and have him just close combat and completely wipe me out. So I decided to just go Golbat because while it is a good bat, I was gonna say good wall, but it is a good bat too. While it's a good wall, this game it is a little bit more expendable than some of the other stuff on my team. Unfortunately, he goes right for the knockoff, which is a great play on his part. It covered the Starmie too, which I didn't really want to go hard Starmie, but it would have been a good play also. So now that Golbat doesn't have a Violite, it's still a good bat, but it's not as helpful this game, I guess. So I'm just going to go ahead and try to stay in and Toxic something. I don't expect him to go hard Genesect or Beedrill on me, honestly, because Beedrill doesn't make sense, and while Genesect could make sense, I don't expect him to actually go hard Genesect in case I U-turn out into something. So I'm going to go for the Toxic as he goes hard circuitry, which is pretty nice, because now if this thing is a tail glow set, it's on a timer, and I can kind of just force it out if I need to anyway. At this point, Golbat is unfortunately kind of done its job, even though it's only turn 2. I don't really want anything else to take like a Thunderbolt or worse, a Hypnosis into a Tail Glow, because that's a set that he likes quite a lot. So I'm just going to stay in and sack this. The crit doesn't matter at all, but I actually get a little bit of initiative here, because he's forced to go into Hitmonlee as I go into a little bit safer of a switch into Starmie this time. Because now, even if he does go for a Fake Out or something, it's not really going to do that much damage. Because I am max HP, I'll be able to take it pretty well. And I can just fire off a Psychic at this point. I do kind of wish I had Psyshock this week, because looking at it, at the team that he brought, obviously Psyshock would have been a little bit better than Psychic. But Weezing is there, and Weezing's a little bit annoying to hit with a Psyshock, and then it doesn't actually do that much damage because it has like insane defense. So I'm just gonna go for a Psychic here. I don't really care what he goes for. He eats his Pyapa Berry, and it only does a little bit under half as he goes for a knockoff and knocks off my Assault Vest. Already showing like amazing prep this week. The Pyapa Berry makes it so he pretty comfortably lives and also activates Unburden off of an attack that he knew was coming from me. So that was great prep on his part. I assume he had to be a pretty bulky Hitmonlee to take that even that well. And it's also pretty risky because if I would have run Size Shock, like I think it still might have killed Hitmonlee even without the Pyapa Berry, or even with it, I guess. But now he actually outspeeds my Starmie and can go for another knockoff and kill. I don't really want it to go for another knockoff, but my best answer at this point is to still go hard Mimikyu, because it's the only thing that can like guaranteed like take damage from this. If he goes for a knockoff, I should be able to at least live one Bullet Punch after, and then kill it with a Play Rough. Thankfully, he just goes straight for the Bullet Punch, breaks my Disguise, but because I have the red card, I force it out. And I force it out into Mandibuzz, which is actually kind of great for me, honestly. I can't Swords Dance, obviously, but I do want to get a good chunk of damage off on this thing and just kind of see what kind of Mandibuzz it is. I expect it to just kind of be his like bulky wall that he likes to run. But it'd be nice to get a little bit of damage and then potentially set up if I want to. So I'm gonna go for the Play Rough. It actually does more than I expect as he goes for a Tailwind, which is very interesting because turns out this is kind of his speed control this week, which wasn't really expected on my part, honestly. So Mimikyu did more damage than I expected, which is nice, but now it doesn't outspeed anything on his team, except like maybe a Araquanid, but either way, like Araquanid's gonna do a ton of damage back to me, so I'm not gonna want to stay in against it. At this point, I expect him to either go for a Foul Play or a Toxic or a U-turn, so I'm going to try to get a little bit of chip damage and just go hard Ferrothorn. Works out even better that he just goes Beedrill, because there's not really anything Beedrill can do besides knockoff, I guess. And at this point, I'll take that because I want to fire off a Thunder Wave. I don't expect him to go Circuitry on me hard. Like, he, I guess, could U-turn into Circuitry here, but I'm just going to go for a Thunder Wave because it pretty heavily cripples everything else on the team. Mandibuzz being paralyzed is also nice. So at this point, I want to get Rocks up and kind of stall out Tailwind a little bit more. Or I think I go for Rocks. I don't remember if I go for Rocks or Leech Seed, but either way, he shows Z Heat Wave, which is pretty intense. If I wasn't Max Spadef, that would have been pretty bad. But luckily, because I am Max Spadef and Mandibuzz doesn't have the greatest special attack in the world, I'm able to take that fairly well. Get Rocks up, get a little bit of leftovers, and I'm out of range of a regular Heat Wave now, even if he's max special attack, which he could be at this point, actually. So I'm just going to go ahead and try to stall and get back a little bit of recovery, as well as stall out Tailwind a little bit more. He goes for Defog, which is fine, because I can kind of just sit in against this thing as I'm getting back recovery, set up Rocks again, and just kind of be generally annoying to this thing, honestly. Like, it is kind of doing damage, but not fast enough. And I can kind of just spam Gyro Ball if I want to, or pivot into Starmie like I did here, and get a decent amount of recovery back. I did calc that turn, by the way, because I wanted to make sure I was able to live with Starmie. Even if it was an offensive Mandibuzz, it was still a roll to kill, and at that point I was willing to chance it. So at this point, really anything will kill, but I kind of want to bluff a Scarf here if I can. So I'm just going to go for a Dazzling Gleam because it forces in, it forces in anything that's either Scarfed or Genesect, I guess. And I did kind of want to bluff in Genesect and then just go for an HP Fire and do damage to it, but he went Circuitry, which is fine. And it's at this point that, like, I'm kind of in a 50-50. Well, I guess it's like a 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, because I don't want to go Circuitry, or I don't want to go Ferrothorn on this, even though it's kind of like my bulkiest Spadef thing on the team, because it is pretty passive and my only attacking move is Gyro Ball. And while I think this thing is Scarfed based on how he's playing it right now, if he's bluffing the Scarf and just goes for Hypnosis Tail Glow on me and sets up, like, it could kind of be an issue. So I have to be pretty careful at this point. So I either want to go Zygarde or Nihilego or Mimikyu here. Because Nihilego still has the Focus Sash intact, I want to kind of keep it that way for now. And in case he goes for an HP Ice, I don't really want to go hard Zygarde. So that's why I go Mimikyu here, because I actually have a decent amount of natural Spadef to be able to take this. And I could just fire off some decent chip damage right here as I take 2 Dazzling Gleams. Go for a Shadow Claw. If I got a crit, it would have killed, but it doesn't matter. And it's at this point that I can either let Mimikyu drop, or I can pivot into Nihilego, break my Focus Sash, but potentially be able to get up a free Beast Boost right here, as well as also keep the threat of Mimikyu in the back so he can't just spam close combat with Hitmonlee or anything. So that's what I decided to do. If you're wondering why I switched into Nihilego here, it's because I predict the Dazzling Gleam, which I resist and take really well. It's down to 8%, so at this point I'm free to fire off an HP Fire or a Dazzling Gleam. I forget which one I actually go for. Yeah, I go for the HP Fire, and because I'm plus speed now, I'm guaranteed to outspeed anything on his team. He's forced to go into Araquanid because it's his best Spadef wall at this point, and I can actually bluff that I'm not Scarf here and go for a Power Gem. It's not like the strongest move against this, admittedly, but I also, first of all, like, don't really have the best switch into this. I could pivot into Ferrothorn here, and in hindsight that might have actually been a little bit better, because as you're about to see, as I go for the Power Gem, he also has the Charty Berry and I only do 22%, and obviously because my Sash is broken, Liquidation kills pretty easily. So in hindsight, going Ferrothorn there would have been probably pretty nice, but I didn't want him to risk having a berry or something like that and getting webs up, because that would have been kind of bad for the rest of my team. So I just decided to do the damage I can do. It's only 20%, but the next one would have potentially killed if he wasn't as invested as he was, so it seemed worth it. So after Nihilego drops, I'm free to go into Zygarde because it's the only thing on my team that I have right now that can actually kill. I have to cross my fingers and hope I land a Stone Edge, of course, but Stone Edge is guaranteed to kill at this point, and because I'm Scarfed, obviously I'm going to outspeed. I land a Stone Edge, thank fuck. It's like the first and last time I will ever run Stone Edge, but I had to do it this week because of Mandibuzz and also Araquanid, and Beedrill. Honestly, he has a lot of Rock Weak stuff, so I needed to run some decent strong rock coverage. So I expect him to have Ice Beam here. I don't really want to go hard Starmie in case he reads me, though, just because I don't have a ton of health left, so I'm just going to sack off Mimikyu because I don't really need it anymore, and then pivot into Starmie here. Like I said in the team builder, this Genesect theoretically could have been Scarfed, but because our league dictates that you have to have a drive on Genesect, I know that it's in no way can outspeed my Starmie here, so I'm basically free to fire off an HP Fire. I could go for a Psychic, but it's a little bit risky, so I just go for the HP Fire, because I do have the pivot into Ferrothorn here, to block this Bullet Punch, which is nice. And it's at this point that I don't really care if Ferrothorn drops, honestly. If he goes for close combat, he'll be doing enough damage, so I can basically pick him off with either Starmie or Zygarde next turn. So I'm just going to go for a Leech Seed in case he switches. He makes a good play and goes for a Rapid Spin and actually takes himself into the range where I can't set up rocks for free, So that kind of actually turned my leech seed into a misplay. I think the correct play there would have actually just been to keep spamming rocks until he died if I knew he had rapid spin, but I wasn't 100% sure on it, so that was just a good play on his part, honestly. So rocks are up, or rocks are free as he goes into Genesect, and at this point I would like to keep Ferrothorn because it is kind of helpful against Beedrill, but it's more helpful for me to just let Ferrothorn drop and then get a free switch into Starmie, do the chunk damage I need to do, and then go into Zygarde. So I'm just going to fire off a Thunder Wave here as he actually pulls a double into Beedrill, predicting my Starmie switch. Huge Thunder Wave, which means that Starmie now outspeeds everything also. I really have no reason not to just try to set up rocks and stall this thing out, as he eventually does kill me off, obviously. But that ended up being pretty huge because that means that rocks are up and his fastest thing on his team is now paralyzed. So I'm basically free to fire off HP Fire and then clean up with Zygarde at this point. Even if HP Fire doesn't kill this Genesect, HP Fire into 1,000 arrows will clean up everything. The paralysis didn't actually really matter because I was scarfed, but if he would have read that double right, it could have been a little bit more annoying. But because Zygarde's strong, I'm actually able to kill off everything here. Just spam 1,000 arrows and eventually win 1-0. The switch out at the end didn't actually matter. Beard said after the game that he thought he might have been able to resist and switch up moves. It wouldn't have really mattered anyway. I don't know. I was scarfed, so I still outsped all the time. So anyway, GG Beard. I had a lot of fun this week because all of our games are always really close, and I feel like both of us prepped really well and countered to each other. So I was able to pull out a really close 1-0 again. It's the third week in a row that I've had a 1-0. Thankfully, it's the second week in a row that I've won said 1-0. So lots of ones in that statement. But anyway, we're back to 4-3. So even with the absolutely horrendous start to the season, we actually are still back in playoff contention, which is kind of cool. Bad news is, like I kind of said in my team builder, I'm sick, so it's Friday afternoon and I still haven't gotten to prep for this week's stuff. So hopefully I can get healthy here soon. But this coming week, I'm finally caught up on stuff. So this coming week, we're playing JTN and the New England Rowlets. He's had a really good season. He has Mega Mawile, which I'm pretty terrified of, and a bunch of other stuff that I'll have to prep for. So stay tuned for that one. The last battle I've had with JTN was actually really close and intense, so I expect it to be a pretty good one. And thank you guys for coming out. Drop a like and subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you later. Bye.